So many things strive to divide us, right? You can't have a unified population that gets along if you wish to play one side off the other, right? And that's kind of always been the way. And there are many methods of doing this, right? And some of the most prolific is telling one group that they are in fact superior to another group, right? And one of the best ways to do that is through education. Okay. Now, grades are a sign of obedience, not of intelligence, not of creativity. It is a marker of how well you can obey authority, right? And you get rewarded by society, economically, and socially for complying with this, right? So it's not necessarily something that is designed to breed individual thought. And now there are tremendous amounts of social pressures, right? And economic pressure in order for you to further your education. So that way you start off your adult life with a tremendous amount of debt, right? And an illusion of superiority to those who did not follow the rules, right? Those who did not just be obedient, right? And this is a beautiful thing, at least for those who went through it, right? Because now you get to have this sense of superiority and you get to feel like you know, right? And it's dangerous to feel like you know. Like if you study and you study and you study and you don't realize how little you know with all the new information that comes in, then you're kind of really only fooling yourself, right? The more that you know, the more you should know that you don't know. Right? But we don't really have an educational system that is designed for that. It rewards obedience, right? Not the expansion of thought. All right, and so it kind of creates this multi-tiered system, right? Where you have the educated and the uneducated. And it's laughable what we as a society place value on, right? Because a lot of the people that go to higher education aren't necessarily involved in creation, right? There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of just, what's the word? Bureaucracy. And that is what pays quite a bit of money, right? Is understanding the inner workings of that. So, there is this animosity, or at least a level of superiority, of the individuals who are deemed more valuable by society, right? And then we have a society that does promote like sociopathic tendencies, right? Where you does not reward high levels of empathy, right? It's kind of a go and get, look out for number one type mentality, which is relatively destructive on the grand scale, right? And you can see that just insofar as how many people are damaged and quite unhealthy. Like cities, you have very dense populations, but no eye contact, no overall communication, right? You don't know your neighbors, and you have 1,000 neighbors living in the same apartment building, right? You are surrounded by people all the time, but you are alone. It's a weird feeling, right, for a social creature. And it does play heavily into our psyche, not only as individuals, but as a nation. Okay, and then there is all this different strife and division that is being sown continually on race, religion, politics, whatever. And the system is so complicated that unless you invest a tremendous amount of time into it, the average person isn't going to understand it, right? And then you have an educational system that rewards people based off of obedience. And these people feel like they do understand the system because they have been rewarded by the system, right? And they sacrificed and they worked hard. They invested emotion, they invested energy, they invested thought, they invested a tremendous amount of money and time into pursuing their higher education, right? And once you sacrifice for something, it's reaffirming its value, right? That's that's one of the biggest like tribal tendencies that we have, right? Why do you have initiation processes in all of the tribes, right? Some of the boys, they go through horrible stuff in order to be accepted as a man by other members of the tribe. Sticking your hand into fire ants in a mitten, right? They do that parachute diving or bungee jumping in the jungle, right? There's all sorts of things where they go through many levels of depravity, right? And you have young boys that are going through in order to become men. They go through this tremendous, almost like a hazing process, right? And then hazing is just another demonstration thereof. If you want to be a part of this fraternity, you have to go through Hell Week, right? You have to sacrifice. You have to be humiliated. You have to be broken down. And now you can be accepted into a part of this that you know every single other person here has gone through this, right? So you enter into another club with other people who have also made sacrifices in order to obtain their position, right? And so it also gets to a point where it's like the gambler, the what is it? The loss fallacy, the law. Oh, can't remember. It's basically you have $1,000 in your account. You spent $800. You only have $200 left. Well, I might as well gamble with the last 200 because I already lost 800. You know, it's that mentality, and it is a very dangerous one to have. Right? It is a fallacy of man. I wish I could remember what it's called. It doesn't matter, but it is an important psychological property of humans. You already feel too invested to quit, too invested to walk away. So you are 100% committed to it, right? And now you also have this tribal association, right? Where if you do not have a solidified self, right, your ego needs something else to latch onto, right? You see this a lot with athletes, not athletes, but fans of sports, right? They have an emotional connection with their team. We won, we lost, we did whatever, right? When they have moments of levity watching their team succeed, or moments of depression watching them fail, right? It does affect them on an emotional, mental, and physical basis, right? And that's without any type of great sacrifice in order to get involved with it, right? So people who are in a higher tier of education or people who have uh, joined whatever type of fraternities or secret societies, especially, they have you do some horrible shit in order to get in there. And then they have you by blackmail and by sacrificing your morality, your time, your energy, or whatever else, right? Now, that's a whole nother thing, right? I was having a conversation with my friends. They said something about like how are there so many damn pedophiles in positions of power? And it actually makes sense in a really fucked up way. Like, if you want to make sure that someone does exactly what you want them to, you want them to have insanely flexible morality, and you want them to have committed something really horrible that you can hold over their head, right? Now you have a blackmail on this individual of flexible morality who is known for manipulating and doing whatever it takes to do whatever they desire, right? And so if you are an evil psychopath, the the individuals that they choose to carry out their plans, it works out really beneficial because you have them twice over. And that's another thing that I'd like to discuss is that I feel it is a lot harder for good people to understand evil than it is for evil to understand good, right? Because if you're evil, you seek power, manipulation, and all this fun. So you are going to make a hobby of understanding people with a code of morality, right? You make it your interest to understand the people that you are trying to dominate or take advantage of or whatever, right? And you understand how to play on their emotions. But if you are a psychopath, sociopath, you are not empathetic. You are not emotionally connected with other people, and that is kind of, why you are doing the things that you are doing or why you are capable of it in the first place, right? So, good people assume that everybody thinks and feels the way that they do. Bad people know that this is not the case, and they know that there are other people who can be emotionally manipulated, right? And I feel like that's something that the good people need to understand that they don't understand, right? Because it's unfathomable to somebody who is righteous and moral, right? The levels of depravity that somebody who is evil can go to, right? And like evil already has a distinct advantage simply because it's willing to do things that good will not, right? And so when you have that type of flexibility, as well as a higher understanding of your opponent, right? It's something to seriously be concerned with. And so I do believe that good people should make a study of evil people, right? It's something that only makes sense. Like, should you not study your opponent? Should you not try to understand them, understand their perspective, no matter how depraved and twisted it may be, right? Simply for the sake of having a better strategy for stopping them or confronting them, right? Or even just having to interact with them, right? It is a difficult, difficult thing. But I want to digress a little bit back with education, right? Because when you take an individual who has a slightly above average intelligence level, you have somebody that is dangerous, right? Because you can warp them into thinking that they are more intelligent than they are, right? And not having a significant amount of intelligence, they will not have the inflection ability to be able to see that, right? So when you reward things like obedience as though they are intelligence and creativity, you create a society, or at least a group within society, that seeks approval from outside of themselves, right? And they have been told that they are better than others when they might not necessarily be, right? Conformity is not the ideal trait for creativity, right? But we breed our population to conform. And those who do not conform, we turn into enemies, right? And I use the word we generally, like as a nation, right? The crackpot conspiracy theorists, right? The tin hat wearing loony bins. And it doesn't matter how self educated a person is. If you are not in the club, if you do not sacrifice, if you do not make the appropriate burnt offering to the lords of academia, then you're not a member of the club, right? You are a part of the other. And the narcissists inside all of us like people who are like ourselves, right? At least to a certain extent. And that's one of the large things about racism that I feel most people do not have a comprehension on, right? If you are in love with yourself, at least to a certain degree, or at least more comfortable with yourself than you are with other people, then you're going to want to associate with people who are similar to you, right? And this would obviously be a shared culture or ethnicity and all of this fun. And that's when you have the clustering. So I don't think that the majority of people are overtly racist and hateful and despiteful. It's more from a lack of familiarity and understanding, as well as just us being inner narcissists. Now there are people with a particular amount of hatred, and they can direct that towards whatever. And there's also associative memories, right? So if an individual of a certain type, they wronged you at one time or another, they could have even bullied you as a child, whatever else. There is some type of memory in there that has triggered that, right? And then that you now project on anybody who shares any characteristics with them. So, you know, we gotta love. We gotta love each other, you know? We gotta seek to understand those who do not, those who wish to destroy and tear everything apart, those that are trying to divide us. Yeah. It doesn't need to be the way that it is, right? We're all brothers and sisters on this planet. And I think that we all need to try to take on a new perspective, try and reach a another level of our evolution as a species. And this is going to be something that is quite difficult because everybody is trapped in their little bubbles and their little tribes and their clans, and everybody's fighting over emotional, hot ticket items instead of like the actual things that are causing it. We as a society like to treat symptoms, not the core root of problems. You know, we have the solution to the majority of problems that we are facing, but we do not have the right implementation. The individuals who do want to make a difference lack organization, right? And then the individuals that wish to tear everything down are very organized, right? I've said this before. There's two types of people: those who want to be left alone and those who don't want to leave you alone. The people who don't want to leave you alone, they get together in groups, right? The people that want to be left alone, they're all by them lonesome. They're leaving you alone, they want to be left alone, all right. But that just means that they're not able to team up. There's no organization, right? And so it goes back to the good versus evil thing, right? Evil's totally fine getting together, doing their thing. Like, all right, yo, man, we're scheming and plotting, right? Whereas the good people, they just want to live their nice little lives. Man, we're in for a whole thing. Rest assured. But we'll see where it goes. It's basically what it comes down to. I believe that 80% of the population has more in common with each other than those that want us to fight. You know, I haven't seen anything to convince me of the contrary. So, I wish you all the best of luck. Try and figure out the different influences that you have for tribal, for your own narcissistic tendencies, right? Uh, the demonizing of that which you do not understand through the society that you've been brought up in, right? Try and figure out the way that you have conformed to society in order to get rewarded by it, right? Try and figure out the lies that you have been told just about your own capacity and your own capability, right? Try and continually examine yourself and understand that just because you have a high position in authority or high position within society or a low position within society, that does not dictate your overall capacity. That is just one basis, right? There's a lot to say. But we got more in common with each other than those that want us to fight. I love you all. Best of luck.